and welcome to another edition of Trader Talk TV. Today we've got Michael from MiQ in the office. Michael, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. Today we're talking about planning and intelligence in CTV. And as we all know, CTV is the hot area of ad tech right now, but it is a bloody mess. And Michael's in here to talk today about how MiQ has approached this. Before we do that, Michael, just talk a little bit about yourself.
Yeah.
And then people who don't know about MiQ, which they do, but like in terms of CTV, talk about what MiQ does in CTV.
Yeah, so I'm Mike. I'm a senior product manager for CTV at MiQ. CTV being connected TV, so a smart TV or somebody watching Netflix through their PlayStation.
Yeah.
In terms of MiQ, we're a programmatic media partner. We work with brands and agencies across the world, but we've got a really heavy emphasis on the analytics and tech side. We've been on here a couple of times.
Yes.
Yeah. And today we're here to talk about, we've kind of been working the last couple of years to build a platform called TV Intelligence to deal with the fragmentation that is plaguing this space at the moment.
Yeah. So let's talk about the state of currently of TV, because that's a good place to start because it is very messy.
Yeah, it is. So to kind of give a TLDR, TV back in the day was your standard scheduled traditional TV. As a buyer, you buy your ad spots, and that was the only place that you'd be able to show your big screen ads with an engaged audience. Then the internet came around, smart TVs were invented, 73% of us now have a smart TV. And really importantly, that's meant that as a consumer, there's just so much choice. You can download lots of different apps to watch the content when you want to watch it and how you want to watch it.
Yeah.
So we're here today to talk about connected TV. Obviously, as the people have had more choice because of smart TVs, watch times on linear TV has been slowly decreasing. It's not dropped off a cliff or anything.
But it's on its way down, slowly.
Yeah, exactly. As I'm just drawing this out, what are you watching? What did you watch on the weekend, Ciarán?
Yeah, we were talking this before we went on camera. So I watched a lot of sports the weekend. So streaming sports. So Now TV, which is Sky's streaming channels.
So we say BVOD?
Yeah, BVOD, yeah. And watching the golf, USPGA, because Michael Lowry was doing, was it Michael Lowry? No, Shane Lowry, sorry, Michael Lowry's the other guy. He's a politician in Ireland. Shane Lowry's a golfer, an Irish golfer, and he was doing pretty well, so watched him. And then I watched another streaming channel, which is Diego, which is like Gaelic football. So basically it was just a stream in heaven, like, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people, because we've all got smart TVs now, that's how we consume our content. When you look at industry reports, the way our watch times are generally split is we'll have the majority of people's time will be on what we call BVOD, so broadcast video on demand, as you're talking Sky, that kind of Now TV bit. Another really big chunk will be on SVOD, so subscription video on demand, SVOD, that's a D there. And as a TV buyer, like everybody's got an ad tier now. It's the golden age, and a great time for your creative to be next to like Fallout or Stranger Things or something, which is really exciting. And then YouTube is also a really big TV channel.
People forget YouTube being a massive
They do.
player.
And like for me in my household, I don't have a TV license. Still get the letters. But I would actually spend the majority of my time in this SVOD and YouTube space.
Right.
Simply because obviously I don't have a license to get to that side.
Right.
But yeah, YouTube is great. Lots of niche interests that aren't necessarily serviced by this part here. And then lastly, kind of the smallest chunk of this is going to be your AVOD and your FAST. So ad-supported video on demand and free ad-supported streaming.
Is that like the Tubi's and Plutos of the world?
Those sort of guys, the Rakutens of the world. And in the FAST space, the equipment manufacturers have been doing really well. You'll, if you've got a modern Samsung TV, lots of channels, similar experience to linear. But it tends to be that each channel is dedicated to a specific program, like Wicked Tune or what have you. But yeah, the main point I'm trying to get across here is consumer fragmentation, right?
Yeah.
We've never had this much choice. And when we did a study, Fragmentation, we did a study last year and we found on average each household has 3 streaming platforms. So you're literally just playing whack-a-mole on multiple machines sometimes, which is the part I'm going to explain next. So we'll do a thought experiment. We're a big advertiser. we've run our linear TV campaign. We've got to go into this CTV space.
Because that's where the eyeballs are, like.
That's where the eyeballs are. The money has to go into this space because
Yeah.
this is where people are spending their time. That's where their attention is. So we're going to start buying it.
Okay.
We'll start with the broadcast side of things.
Yeah.
Highest watch times makes sense. Remember, this includes the BBC though, so there's not necessarily.
Are we
gonna be other
talking to BVOD
opportunities
also about the streaming channels on, the ITVXs?
there. Yeah,
and
the
all that?
ITVXs,
Right.
the Channel 4s,
Right, okay.
that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's not the case for everybody, but generally, you're going to be buying your broadcast CTV through either their proprietary technology or they'll have certain deals with DSPs where you have to buy through them. So we go on there and we buy our BVOD. Our next port of call is probably going to be YouTube.
DV360.
Yeah, exactly. It's a Google product, so you're buying that through DV360. And I'll just write YT for YouTube here.
Okay.
Then streaming. Individually, the reach may not be great, but you link all of those guys together and you're hitting a really decent portion of the country. Similar to the broadcast kind of world, a lot of these people have their own proprietary technology or you have to buy through a certain DSP. So we'll call that a streaming DSP. And that's how you're buying your AVOD. Sorry, your SVOD.
Yeah.
And then lastly is what we'd kind of call the open CTV, which you can buy through any DSP to get your AVOD and your FAST. So, straight off the bat, and this is really simplified, there's multiple streaming platforms
You could
out
have
there.
2, 3. I mean, I could think of like 2 or 3 already in this one alone. There could be 2 or 3 up here. There's one down here, and then there could be multiple DSPs down here.
Exactly,
basically.
yeah. So this is quite messy, and it's really important to remember that these are walled gardens, right? As you were just alluding to. So I can't buy my YouTube through my broadcast DSP. I can't buy my SVOD through my DV360. I mean, you can buy maybe some of it, but not all of it. And then similarly, you're not going to be able to buy all of your SVOD through just one single.
So all of
DSP.
these live in isolation in terms of targeting, measurement, frequency, etc., right? And then you've got to navigate this. So there could be like, 3 instances of walled gardens up here, another one here.
Yes.
You could be talking about the guts of 10 walled gardens effectively, right?
Exactly that. And this is what we call buyer fragmentation.
Yeah.
Fragmentation.
Or
Right.
what other buyers would call a car crash.
Yeah. And this is like a good point to kind of point out where MiQ fits in here. So we will act as a single buying point
Across that.
all of that
Right.
so that we can get the most for brands and agencies. The obvious question is, well, how do you do that? What are you doing to achieve that? And the answer is massive data. Right, so we've got this consumer fragmentation, and then we've got this buyer fragmentation. And we've spent the last couple of years at MiQ trying to figure out how to get over these hurdles. And we've done what we do with everything, which is chuck massive amounts of data at this. And we've built a platform called TV Intelligence, which is the world's largest data footprint for all things linear, streaming, and YouTube.
Yeah.
If I can spell YouTube correctly.
There you go.
Yeah, so the next question is, well, what does this do? What's the point of it? Every media campaign has a plan phase. You then activate where you go and buy the media, and then you go and measure what you did at the end of the day. TV Intelligence sits on the planning side of this, and it's a planning and insights platform that allows us to really easily do 3 of the most common CTV strategies, execute 3 of the most common CTV strategies. The first of those being incremental reach.
Yeah.
So incremental reach is finding the people on CTV that did not see the ads on linear TV.
Right.
So this is all about complementing linear. Because I've got to stress here, although linear watch times are down, it still is a great way to get mass reach in a brand safe environment. You still can get a big chunk of the UK with that. So this is about moving into the CTV space in the most effective way possible. And one of the data sets we lean on really heavily for this is ACR,
right.
automatic content recognition.
Right.
I'm sure you've heard of it before.
Yeah, this is data from the set manufacturers, is it?
Yes, exactly that. And they will, there's a little chip and some code on smart TVs, records everything on the glass, so you see what people are watching, and really importantly, the ads they're exposed to.
Yeah.
And the reason I love ACR data is because we've gone from, it takes us from reporting on 14 broadcast regions to now reporting on 3,000 postal districts.
Wow.
Which are the, I don't know, I'm writing a line there, which is the, if I can write D correctly, is the first part of a postcode.
Yeah.
And this is really important because, again, thought experiment, massive advertiser. We've got 50% reach in the Northwest. You may be happy with that. When you drill down into it, you will see areas like Hyde Park and Leeds, very densely populated with students. They're averse to TV licenses.
So there's a level of granularity you can do versus what you could do in linear, basically.
Yeah, in your traditional, traditional linear and broadcast reporting. So what this allows us to do is we will output an incremental reach plan where we mark down across the entirety of the country your low, medium, and high exposure areas.
Yeah.
And the strategy here being, you start with the low. We're in the digital space. Frequency capping is really strict there. It works well. When that runs out, you then go to the medium, and that way you're minimizing your wastage and you're maximizing the amount of incremental eyeballs you get on CTV.
Yeah, I do have one question around the measurement piece. How do you do it? How is it possible?
Yeah, that's a great question. Measurement in the UK market is still quite fragmented, but there are some great solutions out there. So in the BVOD space, there's things like C-Flight, where you can get great reporting on linear versus your broadcast video on demand. And then outside of that, there's great third parties like the Audience Project, who allow you to measure your incremental reach of your CTV against linear TV.
Okay. So it's a multitude of measurement vendors that you can put together and make it work. Right, okay.
And there's even a really cheeky one coming out where they're listening on mobile phones, and they're able to tell your incremental reach by listening to the different ads across different platforms.
We're not going to be using that one, that's for sure.
I think it's really innovative. So yeah, incremental reach, that's a really, really big part of TV. The second part of this is frequency optimization.
Yeah.
So one of the things that optimization, apology for the awful spelling. One of the things that's been exacerbated by these decreasing watch times on linear is linear's inability to frequency cap on a user level, right? So when we break up people's frequency into quintiles, so 5 bars, we've got frequency here on the y-axis, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With this being your top 20%, so the people who saw the ad the most times, and this being your bottom 20%.
Yeah.
What you'll find is these top 20% will have very high frequency. These are your heavy TV viewers. They're watching 4-6 hours a day of telly. And in really bad cases, they can end up having about 50 to 70% of the delivery just go on these guys.
Right.
Which is bad, right? Overexposure can affect brands. There's studies that say that it can tend to annoy people. That being said, I'm in the market for insurance, and Go Compare was the first place I went to because that opera singer is seared onto the grey matter of my brain at this point. But that's beside the point.
That's brand recall. It works, obviously.
Yeah, so it's worked in some regard. But yeah, as TV buyers, these guys here, the medium and the light TV viewers, they're really, really important. And this is similar to incremental reach, except the only difference here is that we found that people can use this. This exists in the platform, by the way, is people can use this to then better implement their linear buys in the first place, figure out where this overexposure is happening and change their plans around in that way. But in terms of the digital side, once again, we will output a frequency plan, and that will have your low, medium, and high areas of the country.
Yeah.
So that you can try and flatten this out a bit more to get the most bang for your buck. And then the last, but the one that tends to get people, especially in agencies, out of their seats is competitor insights.
Interesting.
So one of the great things about TV intelligence is we see everything, right? It's not just MiQ's activity or a specific brand's activity. It is absolutely everything across linear, streaming, and YouTube. And this allows us to come up with some really cool competitor conquesting plans. Just write competitor conquesting, where we can figure out who a competitor is reaching. There's demographics included in this. So dependent on where your TV delivery goes, if you load a lot of it onto, say, Dickinson's Real Deal, you're going to be hitting an older audience than if you were to do Love Island. How they're hitting those people. So, you know, whether it's through SVOD or through YouTube, that sort of thing. And really importantly, when they're hitting those people, which allows us to come out with some share of voice plans.
Okay.
Any questions on that one?
So this is all data correlated or aggregated through the various sort of data points you have and be able to sort of tell them, competitor set, this is who you're up against, this is how they're advertising, this is what you should be doing. Can you give us a real world example of where this worked for one of your clients?
Yeah. A good example is we have a lottery client.
Yeah.
And what we'd done there is we'd had a look at how their competitors were advertising. And we discovered that in the linear and the CTV world, they were doing short bursts before the actual draw was happening.
Interesting.
Whereas our client was doing consistent advertising.
Right.
For a number
So they were
of weeks
hitting at the time of like the build up, the excitement, the cortisone in the brain. And I can't wait for the numbers to be drawn. Right, hit them right before it's drawn.
Yeah, exactly, and that's where we then went in and said, well, let's take some of the budget from your longer term advertising and really attack those short bursts so that you can also have share of voice with your competitor.
Okay.
And another example there would also be when you have a competitor that doesn't spend much on linear, but they're spending a hell of a lot on YouTube. You can infer that they're going after a younger demographic, and adjust your strategy accordingly.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the long and short of it, really. Just to bring it all together, consumer fragmentation has led to a lot of buyer fragmentation. It's a really complicated space out there. TV intelligence is your one-stop shop for linear, streaming, and YouTube, as you've now got to look at all of this together, allowing you to do incremental reach, frequency optimization, competitor insights, and whatever bespoke stuff you want to.
I guess this sort of works in parallel with the linear buying. I mean, you're not, obviously, are you working with the agents, particularly agents that have done a lot of linear? How does the CTV sort of work with that? Like, how do you work in tandem? Because obviously, linear data sometimes isn't as readily available, and like not everybody has access to the platform, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, the main point here is it's about complementing that linear, right? Like it still needs to exist. And a lot of the time when we're talking to agencies, TV is still king.
Yeah.
It is still the best ad experience you can give to a consumer. Some money has been moving to social, and this is a way for us to bring money from social back into the TV space where we can use it as effectively as possible.
Yeah.
And minimize that wastage and get your incremental users and go after your competitors.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. That was really interesting, and you've kind of run through some of the core problems of TV buying, and then obviously what you guys have done trying to build a planning and intelligence and activation piece around it. So thank you very much for bringing us through that.
Thank you for your time.
No worries. And that was Trader Talk TV. We will see you next time.